9 Golden Age stars with shockingly low IQs. Hollywood's Golden Age gave us some of cinema's most glamorous and beloved stars. Their faces lit up the silver screen, their names sparkled on marquees, and their images defined American beauty and sophistication for generations. But behind those dazzling smiles and perfectly delivered lines lurked a surprising secret that studios worked desperately to hide. "The camera doesn't capture IQ," a former MGM executive once remarked. Sometimes that was the greatest special effect of all. During Hollywood's Golden Age, studios conducted extensive testing of their contract players, not just for camera presence and acting ability, but for basic intelligence and comprehension. These confidential assessments, revealed decades later through memoirs and studio archives, paint a startling picture of the cognitive abilities behind some of cinema's most iconic faces. Tonight, we reveal the 9 Golden Age stars whose reported IQ scores shocked directors, frustrated co-stars, and required extraordinary behind-the-scenes efforts to compensate for their intellectual limitations. Some of these beloved performers reportedly tested at levels considered borderline intellectually disabled, yet managed to build legendary careers through a combination of other talents and careful studio management.
That in the end my husband will win this.
1. Marilyn Monroe, the brilliant image, struggling mind. Marilyn Monroe remains one of Hollywood's most enduring icons, a symbol of both sensuality and vulnerability, whose films continue to captivate audiences decades after her death. Behind her carefully crafted image, according to studio records and associate testimonies, was a woman who reportedly struggled with basic cognitive functions. Reported IQ, 82, noted a former acting coach who worked with Monroe. Studio teachers said she had great difficulty retaining simple information. Despite her charm, she struggled with logic and comprehension in table reads. This reported score, well below the average range of 90 to 110, placed Monroe in what psychologists classify as the low average category. If accurate, it suggests significant limitations in processing and retaining information consistent with the onset difficulties described by directors and co-stars throughout her career. They said she was a genius at seduction and hopeless at everything else, recalled a production assistant who worked on Some Like It Hot. She might need 40 takes for a single line, but when she finally got it, there was this magic that made the struggle worthwhile. Monroe's intellectual limitations reportedly manifested in various ways throughout her career. She frequently arrived late to sets, allegedly because she struggled to understand scheduling. She required extraordinarily detailed direction for even simple scenes. Most notably, she often seemed unable to remember dialogue, necessitating multiple takes that frustrated directors and co-stars. Billy Wilder, who directed Monroe in Some Like It Hot, famously complained about her inability to remember even simple lines. For the line, "Where's the bourbon?" Monroe allegedly required over 50 takes, repeatedly getting the words wrong despite their simplicity. What makes Monroe's story particularly compelling is how she leveraged other attributes, her extraordinary beauty, unique screen presence, and innate understanding of her sexuality's power, to build a legendary career despite her reported cognitive challenges. Her limitations became part of her mystique, contributing to the vulnerable quality that made her performances so affecting. Monroe wasn't book smart, but she had an emotional intelligence that was off the charts, explained a film historian. She understood desire and vulnerability in ways that more intellectually gifted actors never could. That's why she remains an icon while many smarter contemporaries have been forgotten.
Oh, your little beautiful country. It's so clean and spotless and wonderful and beautiful.
2. Jayne Mansfield, the manufactured intelligence. Jayne Mansfield built her career as both a sex symbol and an intellectual, claiming an IQ of 149 and frequently mentioning her violin playing and language skills in interviews. According to Hollywood insiders, this genius-level intelligence was one of Hollywood's most audacious publicity fabrications, concealing a woman who allegedly struggled with basic comprehension. Reported IQ, 149, but insiders claimed 85 at best, said a former publicity agent who worked with Mansfield. Publicity claimed she was brilliant, but multiple directors said she couldn't follow basic blocking. Rumor, a studio insider leaked her actual aptitude test, barely above functional. Mansfield's intellectual facade included carefully staged photographs showing her reading philosophical works, claims that she spoke multiple languages, and publicity about her classical music training. Behind this cultivated image, according to those who worked closely with her, was a woman who allegedly struggled to follow simple directions and often didn't understand the meaning of her own dialogue. She was smart enough to fake smart, and that was the real trick, noted a former co-star. Jane understood that playing dumb wasn't enough to stand out. Plenty of actresses did that. But playing a bombshell who quoted Plato, that was marketing genius, even if it was completely fictional. What makes Mansfield's case particularly interesting is the possibility that the strategy itself might have demonstrated a kind of intelligence, not the academic brilliance she claimed, but a shrewd understanding of publicity and image management. By positioning herself as both sex symbol and intellectual, Mansfield created a unique public persona that distinguished her from competitors like Monroe. There's a certain genius in recognizing what the public wants and giving it to them, even if you have to fake it, explained a Hollywood historian. Mansfield may not have had the IQ she claimed, but she understood something crucial about marketing herself that many smarter stars missed entirely. Mansfield's intellectual pretensions became a running joke among directors and co-stars who marveled at the disconnect between her public claims and on-set reality. Yet they also recognized that the fabrication served its purpose, creating a distinctive brand in a crowded field of blonde bombshells competing for roles and public attention.
On 105th Street and
The Flower Hospital?
Flower Hospital.
Is it still there?
It's still there.
Yeah.
3. Tony Curtis, the pretty face with basic challenges. Tony Curtis transformed himself from Bernie Schwartz of the Bronx into one of Hollywood's most bankable leading men, starring in classics like Some Like It Hot and Spartacus. Behind his stunning good looks and eventual acting prowess, according to studio assessments and his own later admissions, was a man who reportedly struggled with intellectual basics. Reported IQ 90, revealed a former Universal Pictures executive. Curtis admitted in his memoir that reading was difficult and scripts overwhelmed him. One producer allegedly said, "He's a 90, and 80 of those points are in his cheekbones." This reported score placed Curtis at the bottom of the average range, suggesting limitations that might not be immediately apparent, but could significantly impact his ability to process complex information and master difficult material. These challenges reportedly manifested in Curtis's early career difficulties with script comprehension and line memorization. "He looked like a god and thought like a 10th grader on spring break," recalled a veteran script supervisor. Early in his career, they had to break everything down for him. Simple sentences, basic motivations, but he had something that couldn't be measured on any IQ test, an incredible instinct for how to use his face and body on camera. Curtis himself acknowledged his intellectual limitations later in life, discussing his struggles with reading and comprehension in interviews and his autobiography. These admissions lent credibility to earlier reports of his cognitive challenges, while also highlighting how determination and natural talent could overcome such obstacles. What distinguishes Curtis from some others on this list is his eventual growth as a performer. Despite his reported intellectual limitations, he developed into an accomplished actor capable of nuanced performances in films like The Defiant Ones, for which he received an Academy Award nomination. This evolution suggests that whatever his cognitive starting point, Curtis possessed significant emotional intelligence and capacity for growth. Curtis may not have been naturally brilliant, but he was a brilliant student of acting, explained a former co-star. He watched, he learned, he developed. By the end of his career, you'd never guess he'd started with such basic limitations. That's a different kind of intelligence that IQ tests don't measure.
With my extraordinary
4. Mamie Van Doren, beauty that outshone comprehension. Mamie Van Doren emerged in the 1950s as one of Hollywood's platinum blonde bombshells, building a career on her extraordinary beauty and sex appeal. Behind her stunning appearance, according to studio records and coworker accounts, was a woman who reportedly struggled with basic concepts and on-set instructions. Reported IQ, 84, noted a former assistant director who worked with Van Doren, often confused on set. A director once said, "She didn't know left from camera left." Once asked if they filmed in real color or pretend color. This reported score placed Van Doren in what psychologists classify as the low average range, suggesting significant limitations in processing information and understanding abstract concepts. These cognitive challenges allegedly manifested in her difficulty grasping technical aspects of filmmaking and sometimes even basic directional instructions. She lit up the screen, but dimmed every conversation, remembered a lighting technician who worked on several of her films. Directors learned to use physical cues instead of verbal directions. They'd physically guide her to marks rather than trying to explain camera blocking, which just confused her. Van Doren's intellectual limitations reportedly necessitated significant accommodations during filming. Scripts were simplified, dialogue was reduced, and complex concepts were broken down into basic components she could understand. These adjustments allowed her natural physical presence and beauty to shine, despite her cognitive challenges. What makes Van Doren's story particularly notable is how her career was deliberately structured around her limitations. Unlike more versatile performers who might be cast in a range of roles, Van Doren was consistently placed in parts that emphasized her physical attributes while minimizing dialogue and emotional complexity. The studios knew exactly what they had in Mamie, explained a film historian. They never tried to make her something she wasn't. Her films were designed to showcase her obvious assets while working around her equally obvious limitations. It was a pragmatic approach that served everyone's interests.
Hello, I'm Tab Hunter. Did you know that mental illness claims more victims than any other disease?
5. Tab Hunter, the all-American boy with basic comprehension. Tab Hunter embodied the all-American ideal of the 1950s, blonde, handsome, wholesome, and athletic. His appeal to teenage audiences made him one of Warner Brothers' most valuable young stars. According to studio assessments and colleague accounts, Hunter's stunning looks concealed significant intellectual limitations. Reported IQ 87, said a former acting coach who worked with Hunter, was fed lines phonetically early in his career. Studio coach said, he was sweet, but it was like teaching a Labrador Shakespeare. This reported score, well below the average range, placed Hunter in what psychologists classify as the low average category. If accurate, it suggests significant limitations in processing and retaining information, consistent with the learning difficulties described by directors and coaches throughout his early career. Handsome enough to sell 1 million tickets, just don't ask him how many zeros are in 1 million, recalled a former co-star. The studios developed specific techniques for Tab, breaking dialogue into tiny chunks, using visual cues rather than verbal directions, simplifying vocabulary in his scripts, whatever it took to get his all-American smile on film. Hunter's intellectual limitations reportedly necessitated extraordinary accommodations during filming. In addition to simplifying his dialogue, directors would sometimes film his scenes in very short segments, allowing him to focus on delivering just a line or two before moving to the next setup. This approach, while time-consuming, allowed Hunter's natural charm and good looks to shine despite his cognitive challenges. What distinguishes Hunter from some others on this list is his eventual acknowledgement of his early struggles. In his 2005 autobiography, Tab Hunter Confidential, he discussed his limited education and difficulties with reading, lending credibility to earlier reports of his cognitive challenges while highlighting his determination to overcome them. Hunter may not have started with great intellectual gifts, but he had something equally valuable: persistence, explained a Hollywood historian. He worked harder than most to compensate for what didn't come naturally to him. That kind of determination isn't measured on IQ tests, but can be far more valuable in building a sustainable career.
I guess we better go in the theater now to see that Lamour woman. And the other one said, yeah, I wonder what...
6. Dorothy Lamour, the sarong star with basic understanding. Dorothy Lamour became famous for her exotic beauty and the sarong she wore in the Road to series with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. Her warm screen presence and singing voice made her a favorite with audiences. Behind her polished performances, according to studio assessments and colleague accounts, was a woman who reportedly struggled with intellectual basics. Reported IQ 89, noted a former Paramount executive. Beautiful, elegant, and completely out of her depth in unscripted interviews. Rumors claim her screen test included no spoken lines because the studio was nervous. This reported score, at the lower end of the average range, suggested limitations that might affect Lamour's ability to handle complex material or think quickly in unstructured situations. These challenges allegedly manifested in her difficulties with unscripted public appearances and her reliance on carefully rehearsed responses. She didn't have lines. She had looks, and that was enough, recalled a veteran makeup artist who worked with Lamour. Paramount built a career around her exotic beauty and pleasant singing voice, carefully structuring her roles to minimize any intellectual demands. It was a successful formula that played to her strengths while hiding her limitations. What makes Lamore's case particularly interesting is how successfully she functioned within a carefully controlled environment. When provided with appropriate support, scripted dialogue, extensive rehearsal, and clear direction, she delivered performances that appeared effortless and natural. It was only in unpredictable situations that her reported intellectual limitations became apparent. Lamore was perfectly cast in the Road Pictures, explained a film historian. Hope and Crosby were brilliant ad-libbers who could carry the comedic weight, while Lamore could focus on looking beautiful and delivering her prepared lines. It was a symbiotic relationship that worked beautifully for everyone involved. Despite her reported cognitive challenges, Lamore maintained a successful career spanning decades, a testament to both Hollywood's ability to work around performers' limitations and Lamore's own determination to succeed within her capabilities. Her story illustrates how the studio system could effectively leverage specific talents while minimizing weaknesses.
This was my father. I want you to wear it. Always.
7. Johnny Weissmuller. The Jungle King with simple understanding. Johnny Weissmuller transformed from Olympic swimming champion to Hollywood star as Tarzan, creating one of cinema's most recognizable characters. His athletic physique and distinctive yell made him an international icon. According to studio assessments and colleague accounts, Weissmuller's impressive physical gifts were paired with significant intellectual limitations. Reported IQ, 78, said a former MGM executive who had access to the star's records. Olympic swimmer turned Tarzan and allegedly tested at a very low IQ level. Famously stuck to one-word lines because anything more confused him. This reported score, below what psychologists classify as the low average range and approaching what was then termed borderline intellectual functioning, suggests substantial cognitive limitations that would affect many aspects of daily functioning. These challenges allegedly shaped Weissmuller's entire Tarzan characterization, which relied heavily on physical performance while minimizing dialogue. The jungle was the only place he made sense, recalled a script supervisor who worked on several Tarzan films. The genius of casting Weissmuller was recognizing that his limitations could become Tarzan's strengths. His simplified speech patterns and physical approach to problems perfectly matched what audiences expected from a man raised by apes. Weissmuller's reported intellectual limitations necessitated significant accommodations during filming. Directors kept his dialogue minimal and simple. "Me, Tarzan, you, Jane," became iconic precisely because it represented the level of verbal communication he could reliably deliver. More complex ideas were conveyed through physical action rather than words. What makes Weissmuller's story particularly remarkable is how completely his limitations were incorporated into his character. Unlike stars who had to struggle to appear more intelligent than they were, Weissmuller played a character whose limited verbal abilities and instinctual approach perfectly matched his own reported cognitive profile. Weissmuller may be the most successful casting in Hollywood history, explained a film historian. They found a character who turned what might have been debilitating limitations in any other role into perfect character traits. Tarzan wasn't supposed to be articulate or understand civilization. He was supposed to be physical, instinctual, and simple. Weissmuller wasn't acting. He was just being himself.
She's terrific. Dry.
8. Esther Williams, the swimming star with basic comprehension. Esther Williams parlayed her championship swimming background into a unique Hollywood career, starring in elaborately choreographed aquatic musicals that showcased her physical grace and beauty. Behind her sparkling smile and remarkable athletic ability, according to studio assessments and colleague accounts, was a woman who reportedly struggled with intellectual basics. Reported IQ 83, noted a former MGM swimming choreographer. Athletic and camera perfect, but reportedly struggled with every line of dialogue. One soundstage tech said, "They wrote her lines in pool chalk," and that was generous. This reported score, well below the average range, placed Williams in what psychologists classify as the low average category. If accurate, it suggests significant limitations in processing and retaining information, consistent with the dialogue difficulties described by directors and co-stars throughout her career. She didn't swim in the deep end of the mental pool. remembered a costume designer who worked closely with Williams, but she didn't need to. MGM built an entire genre around her that minimized dialogue and maximized what she did brilliantly, looked gorgeous while performing athletic feats in water. It was a perfect solution for both the studio and Esther. Williams' intellectual limitations reportedly necessitated significant accommodations during filming. Scripts were structured to minimize her dialogue, complex concepts were simplified, and directors developed visual cues to guide her through scenes. These adjustments allowed her natural physical grace and beauty to shine despite her cognitive challenges. What distinguishes Williams from some others on this list is how successfully MGM built a unique career path that played exclusively to her strengths. Rather than trying to force her into standard leading lady roles that might have exposed her limitations, the studio created an entirely new genre, the aquatic musical, that perfectly showcased what she could do while minimizing what she couldn't. Williams may be the best example of Hollywood's genius for working with limitations, explained a film historian. They looked at what she had, extraordinary swimming ability, physical beauty, and a winning smile, and built an entire career around those elements while structuring everything to minimize her reported intellectual challenges. The result was a star who was absolutely unique in film history.
Hey, Doctor. You needed one just then, Flash, to save your...
9. Buster Crabbe, the action hero with basic understanding. Buster Crabbe leveraged his Olympic swimming gold medal into a Hollywood career playing iconic action heroes like Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and Tarzan. His athletic physique and good looks made him perfect for these physically demanding roles. According to studio assessments and colleague accounts, Crabbe's impressive physical gifts were paired with significant intellectual limitations. Reported IQ 81, revealed a former Universal Pictures casting director. Flash Gordon star, but according to co-stars, he needed 3 takes to understand the word spaceship. Studio coach said he failed 4 screen tests due to verbal processing issues. This reported score, well below the average range, placed Crabbe in what psychologists classify as the low average category, approaching what was then termed borderline intellectual functioning. If accurate, it suggests substantial cognitive limitations that would affect his ability to process complex information and master difficult material. The Flash was in the costume, not the brain, recalled a special effects technician who worked on the Flash Gordon serials. Directors learned to break everything down into simple physical actions. Run here, look scared, point at that. Complex dialogue or motivation discussions just confused him. Crabbe's intellectual limitations reportedly necessitated significant accommodations during filming. Scripts were simplified, dialogue was reduced, and directors relied heavily on physical direction rather than verbal explanation. These adjustments allowed his natural athletic ability and heroic appearance to shine despite his cognitive challenges. What makes Crabbe's story particularly notable is how perfectly he fit the requirements of serial action films, where physical presence and simple heroics were far more important than nuanced performance or complex dialogue. Like Weissmuller, he found a niche where his limitations were largely irrelevant to the task at hand. Crabbe was exactly what those serials needed, explained a film historian, a handsome athletic man who could perform physical stunts convincingly while projecting basic heroism. The science fiction and adventure serials didn't require sophisticated acting or complex emotional range. They needed a physically credible hero who looked good in the costume. Crabbe delivered that perfectly. Intelligence beyond IQ, redefining success. The 9 stars on our list share a common thread: reported IQ scores significantly below average, yet careers that reached extraordinary heights. Their success challenges our understanding of intelligence and raises important questions about the relationship between conventional cognitive measures and achievement in fields that rely on other forms of ability. Hollywood has always understood something that psychology is only beginning to recognize, explained a film historian. There are multiple forms of intelligence, and conventional IQ measures only capture a narrow slice of human capability. These stars may have scored poorly on traditional tests, but possessed other qualities that proved far more valuable in their chosen field. For performers like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, these alternative capabilities included extraordinary emotional intelligence, an intuitive understanding of desire, vulnerability, and human connection that allowed them to create performances that resonated deeply with audiences despite their reported cognitive limitations. Others, like Johnny Weissmuller and Buster Crabbe, possessed remarkable physical intelligence, the ability to control their bodies with precision and communicate through movement in ways that transcended the need for verbal articulation or abstract thinking. Their athletic backgrounds provided a foundation of discipline and physical awareness that served them well on screen. The studio system was brilliant at identifying specific talents and building careers around them, noted a former casting director. They didn't expect Esther Williams to deliver Shakespearean monologues or Johnny Weissmuller to engage in witty repartee. They created roles and even entire genres that perfectly matched each performer's unique capabilities while minimizing their limitations. This tailored approach to talent development offers an important lesson that extends far beyond Hollywood: the recognition that conventional measures of intelligence may fail to capture the diverse ways humans can excel. By identifying each performer's unique strengths and structuring opportunities accordingly, studios help these reportedly intellectually limited individuals achieve extraordinary success. These stars remind us that IQ is just one dimension of human capability, reflected a cognitive psychologist. Monroe's empathic understanding of vulnerability, Weissmuller's physical expressiveness, Williams's aquatic grace, these qualities don't register on IQ tests, but proved far more valuable to their careers than abstract reasoning or verbal comprehension. For today's audiences, these stories offer a more nuanced understanding of Hollywood's golden age, an era when the studio system's manufacturing of stars extended beyond makeup and wardrobe to include the careful management of intellectual limitations. They also provide a more compassionate perspective on performers whose struggles with basic comprehension were hidden behind carefully constructed public images. The ethics of exploitation versus opportunity. The stories of these 9 stars raise complex ethical questions about Hollywood's treatment of intellectually limited performers. Were studios exploiting vulnerable individuals with cognitive challenges, or were they creating unprecedented opportunities for people whose limitations might have prevented success in other fields? It's a nuanced issue that defies simple judgment, explained an entertainment ethicist. On one hand, these performers were often paid extremely well and achieved fame that would have been impossible in most other contexts. On the other hand, they were sometimes subjected to ridicule, manipulation, and extraordinary pressure that they may not have fully comprehended. For stars like Marilyn Monroe and Tab Hunter, the psychological toll of hiding their intellectual limitations while maintaining demanding public personas eventually contributed to significant personal struggles. Monroe's substance abuse and Hunter's anxiety both reportedly stemmed partly from the strain of pretending to be more intellectually capable than they actually were. The studio system could be simultaneously exploitative and empowering, noted a Hollywood historian. It created opportunities for people with limited cognitive abilities to achieve extraordinary success, but often at the cost of authentic self-expression and honest human connection. These stars were both beneficiaries and victims of a system that valued appearance over substance. What complicates ethical assessment is that most of these performers actively sought their careers and appeared to value the opportunities Hollywood provided. Even those who later acknowledged their intellectual limitations, like Tony Curtis, expressed gratitude for the chance to transcend their natural constraints through acting careers that brought wealth, fame, and creative fulfillment. We should resist the temptation to view these stars as either pure victims or unfettered beneficiaries, cautioned a film scholar. Their experiences reflect the complex reality of a system that could simultaneously exploit vulnerability and create unprecedented opportunity. Most lived lives far richer and more rewarding than would have been available to them outside Hollywood, despite the very real challenges they faced. For contemporary audiences, these stories invite reflection on how we value different forms of intelligence and ability. They challenge us to consider how society might better recognize and nurture diverse talents while providing appropriate support for areas of limitation, creating opportunities for achievement without demanding the kind of exhausting pretense that characterize these stars' experiences. Perhaps the most valuable lesson from these 9 stars is the recognition that human worth isn't determined by IQ scores, concluded a cognitive psychologist. Their achievements remind us that conventional measures of intelligence capture only a narrow slice of human capability, and that extraordinary contributions can come from individuals who might score poorly on standard assessments. Tonight we've explored the surprising cognitive limitations behind some of Hollywood's most iconic faces, stars whose reported IQ scores would have shocked their adoring fans. From Marilyn Monroe's struggle with basic comprehension to Johnny Weissmuller's minimalist dialogue, these performers achieved extraordinary success despite intellectual challenges that might have prevented careers in almost any other field. Their stories reveal both the manipulative genius of the studio system, which crafted roles and even entire genres to showcase specific talents while hiding limitations, and the remarkable resilience of performers who found ways to excel despite significant cognitive constraints. They challenge our understanding of intelligence and success, reminding us that conventional IQ measures capture only a fraction of human capability. These 9 stars also offer a more nuanced understanding of Hollywood's golden age, an era when the manufacturing of screen icons extended beyond physical appearance to include the careful management of intellectual limitations. Behind the glamorous facades and seemingly effortless performances were often individuals struggling to memorize simple dialogue and understand basic directions. What makes these stories particularly compelling is how these performers leveraged other forms of intelligence, emotional, physical, social, to achieve heights that would have seemed impossible given their reported cognitive limitations. Their success reminds us that human potential transcends conventional measures and manifests in diverse and sometimes surprising ways. If you found this exploration of Hollywood's hidden history revealing, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of cinema's golden age. We publish new videos every week, examining the fascinating, often surprising truth behind the myths we've all been sold. And if these revelations about beloved stars intrigued you, you won't want to miss our upcoming video on the 7 Golden Age performers who overcame extraordinary physical challenges to become screen legends, stars whose visible disabilities were hidden through elaborate camera techniques and studio deception. Click the notification bell so you don't miss this eye-opening exploration of Hollywood's most remarkable physical transformations. Thank you for watching, and remember, in Hollywood's golden age, as today, success often depended less on conventional intelligence than on that unique combination of qualities that makes each person extraordinary in their own way.